James Carter wasn't the kind of guy who went looking for trouble. For 35 years, he'd built a career as an infrastructure consultant, dodging chaos like a pro, always keeping things steady, predictable. After his divorce and the last of his big contracts wrapped up, he was done with the grind. He craved quieta life where the only noise was birdsong and the hum of a small town winding down before midnight. So he bought a 2-story house at the end of a sleepy cul-de-sac, backed by a forested slope in a mid-sized American suburb. It wasn't flashy, just solid, with a modest yard that promised privacy. That was the dream. No more airports, no more boardrooms, just him, his coffee, and the trees. The house was in good shape, but the property lines were fuzzy, and that bugged James. He wasn't possessive, but he liked clarity structure. Within a week, he hired a surveyor to map out his land. Everything checked out. His lot stretched 12 feet beyond the rise behind the house, running parallel to the neighbor's fences. The southern edge, though, where his yard met a communal path and a strip of open grass, was wide open. Passers-by could peer straight into his living room. It wasn't about paranoia, it was about peace. So he decided to put up a fence, not some hulking eyesore, just a clean, 7-foot cedar slat barrier along the southern and eastern edges. He hired a licensed contractor, filed paperwork with a neighborhood committee, and followed every rule to the letter. The committee, a voluntary board that liked to keep the suburbs be cohesive, gave the green light at a meeting with no objections. Construction started the next Monday, and for 2 days, it was smooth sailing. Posts went up, panels followed, and James watched from his upstairs study, savoring the sight of something solid taking shape. Then, on the third day, at 5:47 p.m., everything changed. A pounding on his front door jolted him from his book. He opened it to find a woman he'd never met, mid-60s, heavy-set, with a wild mane of blonde-gray curls and a shawl draped like she'd just stepped off a stage. In one hand, she held a half-empty wine glass. In the other, a folded plastic patio chair. Her sandals clicked as she shifted impatiently. "You're James, right?" she snapped, not asking but accusing. "I'm Linda. I live next door, the one with the rock garden. We got a problem." James stayed calm, glancing past her to the tan bungalow she pointed at, its solar lights and garden gnomes barely registering. "What kind of problem?" he asked evenly. Linda sighed dramatically, as if he should have read her mind. "That monstrosity you're building," she said, jabbing a finger at the fence. "It's blocking my sunset." James blinked, unsure if she was serious. "Your sunset?" he repeated. "Yes, my sunset," she barked, wine sloshing. "Every evening, I sit on my patio with a book and a glass of wine. It's my wellness routine, my rhythm. That fence is ruining it." She stormed down his driveway, dragging the chair, and plopped it near the property line. Pointing at a sliver of sky between 2 oaks, she declared, "That's where the sun sets. Your fence will kill it." James looked. The sun was still high, with 40 minutes to go before dusk. He chose his words carefully. "I get that it changes your VYEW, but the fence is on my land, and I followed all the rules." Linda shot up, her chair tipping over. "That doesn't make it right. Sunlight's community property. You're stealing our shared landscape." She stormed off, muttering about selfishness, Leah VYing the chair where it fell. That night, James sat at his desk, typing every detail of the encounter: time, words, tone. His gut told him this wasn't over, and it wasn't. Over the next few days, Linda's presence became a shadow. She didn't confront him again, but she'd stand at her yard's edge, staring with eerie stillness, like a predator waiting for a misstep. On the 5th day, a contractor found a deep scratch on their truck, no proof, just a grim nod from the foreman. Seen this before in neighborhoods like this. That evening, James found a letter in his mailbox, unstamped, with looping handwriting. "Saw you may have your fence, but you'll lose more. People talk. I have influence. Good luck. Son no siginature." Sleep didn't come easy that night. He stared at the fence line, dusk pooling like a bruise, and called his attorney, Sarah, a sharp, soft-spoken woman who'd handled his divorce with precision. "Something's brewing," he told her. "I need you ready." Sarah's reply was simple. "Document everything. Don't react emotionally." Call me if it escalates. It did. 2 days later, a cold, bureaucratic knock interrupted James as he arranged native plants by his back steps. 2 police officers stood on his porch. On older one, Officer Malone, stiff and nearing retirement, and a younger one, Officer Tate, earnest and polite. "Mr. Carter?" Malone asked. James nodded. "We're here about a complaint. Unauthorized structure, public safety concern. Claims your fence exceeds height limits and blocks visibility, endangering neighbors." James stayed calm, though his pulse spiked. He and Ted them in, showing permits, surveys, and approvals from a labeled folder in his pristine office. Malone re-VYEU'd them, nodded, and said, "Looks in order." But then he added, "The complainant also says she feels threatened, claims the fence is meant to intimidate." James's jaw tightened. "Threatened by a fence?" he asked, deadpan. Malone shrugged. "Her words, not ours. Any conflicts with her?" James recounted the sunset argument, keeping it factual. The officers left with a warning. Report anything odd, damage, harassment. Things like this can spiral. They weren't wrong. That night, James checked his new security cameras and caught a chilling sight. At 2:14 a.m., a figure, female, heavy-set, curly hair, stood near the unfinished fence for 5 minutes, motionless, before walking away. The next morning, the crew found bleach poured on fence posts, weakening the wood and killing nearby saplings. The foreman, a no-nonsense guy named Tom, looked James in the eye. "This ain't about the fence. You got a problem. We'll keep working, but you need a plan." The pressure was mounting, seeping into cracks James hadn't known existed. Sarah called, already aware of the police sit through a contact. "She's building a paper trail," she warned. "She wants you to look aggressive. Document everything, photos, times, nonverbal stuff. It's excessive, but it matters." James exhaled. "You think this goes legal?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "It already is. She's not suing yet, eroding your credibility." The fence kept rising, and so did Linda's campaign. She sat on her lawn with a hand mirror, reflecting sunlight onto the fence like a petty laser show. One night, James came home to find garbage bags ripped open in his driveway, rotting food and oil leaking into the concrete. It happened again the next night. Camera footage showed Linda, in a housecoat, dragging the bags deliberately. Then came another hand-delivered envelope, a blurry photo of Linda on her patio with a kitchen timer, captioned, "Saw forced in a shade at 7:16 p.m. pre-VYS norm." 7:43 p.m. saw the letter, called it proof of hostile environmental action. James laughed, a sharp, humorless sound, but the chill beneath it was real. This wasn't chouse, it was calculated. A neighbor, Tom, left a voicemail. "Sorry you're dealing with this. Been there. Call if you need a sanity check." James didn't call, but the words lingered. He wasn't alone, but he was the target. Sarah hired a property law specialist to reaffirm the fence's legality, and his notarized affidavit VYT joined the growing file. Linda, undeterred, hung tin can wind chimes just over the property line, their clanging a relentless taunt. When James approached, she smiled sweetly. "Lovely night, isn't it?" He walked away, the chimes mocking him. The turning point came with a brown folder delivered to Sarah's office from the county zoning department. Linda had filed a formal complaint, alleging environmental obstruction, light deprivation, and psychological degradation from the fence. Sarah read it aloud, half expecting it to be a joke, but its precision was unnerving. It wasn't a lawsuit, but it could trigger a county re-VYEW. "She's not playing anymore," Sarah said. "We need to match her." They filed a rebuttal with sworn statements from the surveyor, contractor, and consultant, beating the deadline. A hearing followed a sterile VYDO call, where Linda, flanked by a wellness advocate, read a statement about the fence's emotional erosion and her prescribed circadian rhythm therapy. James stayed stone-faced, presenting facts without flair. The arbitrator, weary and unimpressed, dismissed Linda's penalty request. Her screen blinked off without a word. But Linda didn't stop. She set up a table by the fence with a community petition, "Restore Our View" sign, collecting signatures from passersby. Some neighbors, like a young couple, signed without knowing it targeted James, later apologizing. Their note, with others, let Sarah file a protective notice to curb Linda's community stunts. Still, Linda pivoted to emotional warfare, walking the neighborhood with a sign, "Saw, I miss my light." Saw her pamphlets painted a poetic loss. Saw my evenings are gray. My body knows what's been taken. Saw whispers followed James at the post office, the hardware store. Sarah summed it up. She's building a myth. Reason doesn't matter, belief does. The final straw came when a building compliance truck rolled up. Two inspectors, citing an anonymous complaint, checked for uninspected construction and easement violations. James handed over every document, and they left empty-handed. But that night, 3 fence panels were defaced with black paint. Saw opened the sky. Saw the words hit like a gut punch. James filed a sheriff's report, but no witnesses meant no action. Over takeout with Sarah, he saw her map Linda's tactics, a web of complaints exploiting bureaucratic gaps. "You can't fight this with logic," Sarah said. "You need structure." She proposed a nuisance hearing petition, needing 10 neighbor signatures. James went door to door, calm and factual, and got 12, 3 with stories of Linda's past antics. The petition filed, a new complaint landed. The fence caused wind, tunneling, erosion, and psychological strain. 5 new chimes appeared, their discordant notes just legal. Then, a flyer on James's car accused him of rejecting mediation and erasing community VYUs. The hearing loomed. The night before, James woke to his lawn covered in plastic flamingos, gnomes, and windmills, lined up like a mocking army. By noon, they were gone, but Sarah's warning rang, "She's trying to break you." The hearing, in a dusty community center, was stark. Linda, in maroon, spoke of lost skies and connection, her voice quivering for effect. Sarah countered with relentless facts. Vandalism, chimes, garbage, pamphlets. James answered questions plainly, admitting no regret for the fence. The board deliberated 48 hours, then ruled. Linda's actions were a sustained disruption. She got a warning and a no-contact directive. No fines, no drama, just a line drawn. Linda vanished behind closed blinds. Her porch lights stayed off. The chimes, signs, and mirrors disappeared. The neighborhood exhaled, but the tension lingered. James planted plum, apricot, and fig trees along the fence, slow growers that felt like a promise. A new family moved in across the street, while VYing with cautious hope. The board tightened complaint rules, a quiet nod to the saga. By fall, the juniper James planted had grown a foot. The fence stood, casting slatted shadows at dusk as shadows. Peace wasn't won. It was reclaimed, inch by inch, through a war he never wanted. One day, a package arrived, a framed sunset photo with the words, "Saw we all lose something." Saw James set it face down in a drawer. Peace, he learned, wasn't a gift. It was a boundary you held, no matter who tried to tear it down. What do you think? Was James right to stand his ground, or should he have compromised for peace? Is Linda a VY lane, or just someone fighting for her own sense of home? How far would you go to protect your space? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you on edge.